You know what word I really don't like? The word saucy. Like you ever hear someone use that phrase and go, "Oh, you're saucy." Like what does that mean? Like I know what it means, but like what does it mean? Welcome to Rumble Book Club. I'm your host, Mike Hernandez, and this is the show where a normal guy like me can talk about interesting books I've read, well, the new, good, and bad. So if you like the show, you like the content, you like the books that I talk about, or maybe you think some words are really creepy and gross too. But if you come to the right place, my friend, you can follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Parler, and now Getter. I thought I'd check that one out, see what it's like. Or you can subscribe down below at YouTube or Rumble. But more importantly, be a part of the conversation. Let me know if you like the books that I talk about. Let me know if there's any books you want me to get around to, or just comment and just let me know your thoughts on the actual videos themselves. And I'm always happy to hear feedback, want to know what you think. I appreciate those of you that just came on to subscribe. I actually got quite a few after my last review of Ron Chernow's book Washington. I guess a lot of people like that one, but hopefully you like this one. Today we're going to take a look at a really cool book I read. It was actually, it's got some sentimental value because it's the last book of my 2021 book journey. It's the last one I read. I literally read it right before midnight of New Year's, and it's actually the first fiction I've read by Andrew Klavan. Today we're going to take a look at When Christmas Comes. So this is the page-turning tale of an English professor with some mysterious lethal skills, vicious murder in a very quaint, beautiful village, mostly populated by military families, and then the ghosts of the past and present coming to life in this Christmas season. So we're going to get into our three-part criteria of the book, starting with the aesthetics, how it looks, how it feels, then getting into the readability, how it reads not just intellectually, but also on the eyes, if it's a pretty easygoing read or if it's something you kind of have to chop your way through. And then finally getting into the content, what's the actual information for nonfiction, but what's the actual story you get for fiction that you're actually getting between the covers, if it's actually worth the nice sit down and read. So let's start off with the aesthetics here. Andrew Klavan, I listened to his show, he's the host of the Andrew Klavan Show with the Daily Wire. He gets a lot of grief from a fellow Daily Wire host, Ben Shapiro, for always picking really poor names for his books, but I found the name for this one to actually be very fitting. When Christmas Comes, it actually pairs really well with the story. And one thing that Andrew Klavan does, I think better than any of the other authors that write books at the Daily Wire, including you, Matt Walsh, so you can ban me from your show if you want, is he picks I don't know whether it's Andrew Klavan himself or his team, someone in the publishing house or Mysterious Press who came up with this one, but I've also read his book, The Great Good Thing, which I also did a review of. He seems to have a knack for picking the most beautiful covers in the feel of the book. Everything is just perfect. So I love the matte finish. I love the size, the fact that it's very small. It's hardback, but it's very small, and you can just kind of tuck it into a bag or even almost tuck it into your back pocket and carry around with you. And then the cover is very simple. It's very beautiful. I love books that have a little bit more of a darker theme. And this Christmas village you see kind of zoomed in there, it's very peaceful. But there is kind of this dark sense of mystery to it because you get the, what is it called? The mistletoe with a little bit of droplet of blood. It kind of piques your curiosity there. And then he keeps it simple with just the title and the author. It's done very, very well. It's definitely the kind of book that makes you want to, just like sit down in a comfy chair by a log fire and just read it all at once. And I'm rarely someone that can sit down and read something all at one go, but I pretty much did that one. I started this one, I think early in the morning on New Year's Eve, and then finished before midnight. So this was a fantastic way to actually get the book started with the aesthetics wise. So as far as the aesthetics, let's go with a perfect score, 10 out of 10. Tastes like coffee. Now let's look at the readability. So Klavan is a very, very gifted storyteller. I kind of got a hint of that when I read The Great Good Thing, which is a nonfiction, kind of a memoir of his life. But now I really get a sense of it diving into his fiction for the first time. Good storyteller, and he uses his abundant literary experience very tactfully. So he doesn't use all this experience with all these great, literary geniuses to just kind of bowl you over with his knowledge. He's actually very reserved and very conservative in how he delivers his own personal gift and his own personal experience. And he creates this incredible story that's like even people that don't typically read, even non-readers, I believe they would be able to get into this book and really get into the get into the characters, become invested in the story. So even people that are non-readers, I would highly encourage you to read this book. And it's actually a really good taste into the style of some of those classics, especially the kind of that Victorian style, that very dramatic style. The mystery of the story is very tangible, but it's not so twisted that you can't follow the thread. So he has that good sense of energy, action, mystery, but he also doesn't create this complex web of characters where you lose track and you just kind of tune out. I've done that before in certain mystery stories. So the pages themselves are very brief and crisp with very clear font and wide margins, which makes the reading experience itself, just like with the cover where it really piques your interest and makes you want to sit down, the actual way he lays it down print-wise makes that ability to sit down and read it in one sitting actually possible. So it's easy on the mind, easy on the eyes. So as far as the readability, another perfect experience, 10 out of 10. Now let's take a look at the content. Klavan expresses that he wanted this book to be the first in a long series with a single protagonist, and I'm actually really excited after reading it. I'm excited to see what the next adventure will be, where Cameron Winters go. It follows Cameron Winters, who's an English professor who has a very disturbing past, and his past is kind of loosely alluded to several times as he sits down with his therapist. He's kind of, you start the story having him sit down for the very first time with a therapist, and he's trying to actually mull over the problems of his own life and figure them out for himself. He's kind of finally feeling this necessary step to heal his own mind. And his sessions with Dr. Margaret Whittaker cover some of his lethal skills. You kind of start seeing this dangerous potential in Mr. Winters. And he also has this crime-solving savvy that you also start to get a hint of early in the book. But mostly he's there to talk about his very troubling past, memories from his childhood and from his time as a young man, and the ghosts of his lost love. So there's this kind of tying into this theme of Christmas. The season of Christmas kind of brings back this kind of unpleasant memory he has of this intense warmth, intense love that he experienced, and which was kind of taken away in this very strange and surreal manner that seemed like it was from an absolute nightmare. And it's kind of paired well with this ghost story that also ties into his past, into his childhood. So it's really interesting. It really draws you in. And he has this former student who was also a former lover. They were kind of breaking the rules there, whose name is Victoria. She's a lawyer, a pretty successful one, and she brings this case to Winter about the case of Travis Blake, who's a young Afghanistan war veteran. He's a Silver Star hero, and this guy pleads guilty to the brutal murder of his girlfriend, Jennifer Dean. Victoria believes that something about the case just doesn't seem right. So it's a vicious murder. He pleads guilty, and you have this. It's done in the setting of this beautiful town, which is set up for Christmas at the time of the story. Full of all these Army Rangers, war veterans who I guess left the force, settled down with families, and they all seem to follow this same pattern. And all of them, from the cops, judge, jury, everybody, the people investigating the crime, they seem uninterested in actually digging deeper below that surface level of the murder and Blake's guilty plea. No one wants to go that much further than that. They just want to take it at face value, and she finds that really wrong. So she's not 100% convinced that he's innocent, but she thinks something about this specific case might not be right. So she has Winter, she asks him kind of on a favor, like, can you help me out? Prove that he's innocent. And there's kind of this thing hanging in the air of, even if you can't, tell me what's wrong with this case. And you really feel that tangible need to just figure out it's some kind of unexplained phenomenon there. His trip, his journey to kind of figure out more about who Blake is, who Dean is, to kind of figure out their stories. It takes him through this relationship about, a broken man, a war veteran who was completely broken in his mind and his heart, who experienced extreme loss, extreme tragedy. This woman who kind of literally falls out of the sky, almost literally, and essentially saves him. And they have this beautiful relationship that everyone sees from the outside as something truly beautiful. And then you see that this girl, there's a little bit more to her than that. There's also a little bit of a checkered past, and there's this bit of danger. And you start seeing these elements of danger surrounding her start to rise to the surface as Winter is investigating this case. It's written in a very kind of Victorian romantic style, and it pulls a lot of tangible emotion from the characters, from the mystery of just the scenario, and then even the scenery, even the season, everything, even the way Klavan describes the architecture, the snow falling, all over the hillside. There's this whirling sense of like romantic style that's really beautiful, and I actually didn't think I would be, when I started seeing like kind of his romantic style being played out. I was a little leery at first, and the only really romantic style I'd ever read was bits and pieces of the Scarlet Letter from high school. So as soon as I started seeing things, kind of that similar language being layered, I was like, whoa, hold up. But reading it, I'm actually really glad that I stuck to it. It actually might be a good introduction for someone that's kind of wanting to get into experiencing some of the romantic artists, romantic authors of different times. Reading this book by Andrew Klavan kind of gives you kind of a more modernized take of that romantic style, and Klavan pulls together an absolutely magnificent story that's both compelling and very, very beautiful. So as far as the content goes, I mean, we're a perfect score all across the board, 10 out of 10. So this book was a gift to me from my parents. It was a Christmas gift, so perfectly done there. But you can find it at Barnes & Noble, although when I checked earlier before the Christmas rush, it had already sold out there. I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's a fantastic fiction. And the book is When Christmas Comes by Andrew Klavan. Go out and get yourself a copy. Thanks for listening, everybody, and go read something.